I want to share something. Everything is profitable in faith. Nothing is profitable in unbelief. And again, we're seeing everything from people stranded on a train, okay? We're seeing the cities of America turned into absolute septic tanks. I remember one time when I first went on radio, Doug, whatever, decades ago, when I said America will drown in its own defecation. Boy, that went over. Or excreted pharmaceuticals would make a safe water almost not. You're gonna spend your life looking for water. Remember, Bob, I said the statement. You'll be drinking water in the days ahead that you'd normally only walk through with your boots after a rainstorm. And now we're seeing the absolute flood. And it's interesting to me. We have weather anomalies now, and I believe they're all majority are man-created. Every nation's making war that possesses the technology, 245, everything. What does that say about the growing season coming up? We're already hearing dire words. I mean, it doesn't matter how much of the sea life dies. It doesn't matter if the phytoplanktons die. Nothing matters. And that's what we're saying. And my frustration before the Lord in all these years, believe me, I've shed more tears for those who are going to perish than the enemies of mine and the enemies of trying to get people to prepare for the salvation of their own families. Those people don't say, all they do is give each other high fives on some, hidden website. Just can't wait. But I'll tell you this, that the people that take God at his word, prepare, moving in the fear, the awesome reverence of Almighty God, being prompted. I know the strongest men of faith I know, by the way, do prepare. They're not weenies, and I'm sorry, I'm not called to walk amongst weenies, and if that word is offensive, isn't it interesting, Bob? If I use the word crap, I'll get more feedback from the self-righteous than if babies are having their brains taken out, and the fact that the mega churches won't even speak up. I mean, I'm beside myself at night. I said, Lord, let me, help me, enable me, anoint me, but God, let me stop it. I don't care what anybody else does. God help me. And I just end up with a pile of tears. And that's what I don't understand. Same thing. Look, I have a track record of being in the preparedness business. I can't tell you how many people lost their jobs after Y2K. They gave, for the first month or two, or first year or two, they gave me a bunch of crap. They spent $10,000 for a year's worth of food for a family then, and they ended up eating it, and that's where the money came to fill the gas tank. I mean, preparation always pays off. And let's talk about water now, because when we get into the next, Bob, let's talk in the next hour about communication, personal communication, and how to stay informed. Because again, we're at, how do I say this nicely? We are at the most deadly point. The Cuban Missile Crisis on a scale of 1 to 10 at the time was a 9. Compared to where we're at now, we're at 100. And yet, again, people take it all for granted. So someone calls you, ready-made resource, Bob, what do I do for water? The two most important commodities in the world, start on talk radio, that's my first show, will be food and water. Water. Tell the difference between a purifier and a filter and what you recommend to people.
Well, first of all, you have to keep in mind that, without water, you do not eat. You can have all the survival food in the world. If you eat, you'll die quicker if you do not have water. You just don't eat because your body will consume water in the digestive process. So water is, as far as the tracks of the railroad are concerned, I consider food and water on one side of that track and then communication being able to see and defend on the other side of that track. They're parallel tracks in my opinion, but water is absolutely critical. And I would want to have a water purifier that takes out everything. I mean, they make them today. They use the same material that dialysis machines use. It'll take it down so you can remove even viruses out of the water. The major contaminants people are going to deal with water are two of them. If you're drinking water out of a pond, a stream, anywhere, cryptosporidium and giardia, both of them, believe me, you do not want to get them. My brother got cryptosporidium once. It never leaves your system. It can always make a flare back, so you just don't want it in there. And the water might look clear. You might hear the thing, well, if the water's gone over these rocks for so many feet that it's okay to drink. That's not true at all. You need to purify water. You cannot afford to get sick. And most of the freeze-dried food that you're going to be purchasing, if you're going to purchase that type of food, food, you're going to need water to reconstitute it. And so if you don't have the ability to boil it or filter it, you're going to be in dire trouble. Now, there's two different ways the water is filtered. One is for obviously biological contaminants, and two are for chemical contaminants. And you want a water filter that actually does both of them. I mean, the Big Berkey, a lot of them, that has, when you use the black filters, it takes out the chemicals, it takes out even the pharmaceuticals, it'll take out radiation, it'll take out, biologics. And I tell those people all the time, will it do pond water? Yes, it will. Now, if there are large particulates in the water, make sure you just pre-filter them. Even if you're using a T-shirt, anything, pre-filter the water and get the larger pieces out. The filter will do it, but you'll just clog them up faster. And when it comes to water, you have to keep in mind the saying, one is none, two is one. You do not want to have just one water filter. You want to have several separate water filters. If something happens to one, this is where you absolutely want to have a backup system. If you buy a Big Berkey, that just might mean extra filters. If you're buying, individual little water filters like a Sawyer mini filter, I mean, those are sub $25. I mean, so you can get one for everybody in the family. And that way, if something does happen, you have a backup when it comes to water. 3 days without water, and you're going to be, pretty much dead. So you can go weeks, if not months, at least a month without food. You can't go that long without water. So keep that in mind. Also, if you live in climates like you have, Steve, and you have like a portable water filter or water filter in your home, you have to keep it from freezing. Water is one of those weird molecules that expands when it freezes, and so if you let your water filter freeze with water in it, it's going to expand and crack the filter, something you just don't want to have done. So keep that in mind. And that brings us to a point. People in the city, I mean, they're going to have to take this into consideration. And, a lot of us people who live out in the woods of Tennessee, we have the ability to heat our home without the electricity, whatever. But if you're living in a city, you're going to have to figure out how to heat that home, because if you're living in a home that does not have heat and it gets down whatever the temperature is outside, 0 degrees or less, you're going to spend so many more calories keeping warm. And two, your water filters aren't going to work because the water will be frozen. So you're going to have to figure out a way to keep your house warm if you live in a northern climate, so that water filter and water will be flowing and not be in the form of ice.
Well, and Bob, let's just give some basic products and some basic costs, okay? Because again, ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about everybody's got well, not everybody, but the majority of people used to have life insurance. I coined the term life insurance. So let's just talk about some items. And when we get into shortwave radios and personal communication, we'll deal with the prices, because people have to understand that, a Big Berkey, let's say, with the black filters, and then versus, let's say, a Catadine or a whatever handheld pump unit. Go through those.
It depends on, first, the size of your family. How many people are you going to be making water for? There's something made by Noah Water, and we sell them. It's called a Trekker, and it's actually a portable water plant. An incredible thing. And you can hook it up to a 9-volt battery. It takes out all the chemicals. It takes all the biologics, and you get pure drinking water. You can throw it in a stream, and it'll make 60 gallons an hour. So, I mean, you could do a lot of good with a water filter like that. Now, that's fairly expensive in the $1,300, $1,400 price range, but think of what you get with it. Think of the goodwill that you could generate in your community by pumping and giving people, bring your water jug and I'll give you a gallon of free water every day. That could garner for you a lot of goodwill in a disaster or a grid down where the water's not working. Because keep in mind, if the electricity goes off, those water towers that use gravity to feed the water to your home also have pumps to pump it up there. It's going to quickly be depleted, and if you don't have the ability to filter that water, I mean, people in life rafts out in the middle of the ocean, they end up drinking salt water knowing that it's going to kill them, but you will drink water that's contaminated and vile, filthy, anything, because your body will demand it. So, you can start off, if you're going to just be doing it in your home, have the ability to go out and get water and bring it back into your home. Now, one thing people ask me all the time, can I store it in milk jugs? No, that's a degradable plastic, a biodegradable plastic. If you put water in there, stick it in the corner, you can do this experiment. It'll last about 9 months to a year, and it'll start to leak because the plastic's designed to degrade. Pepsi bottles are different. They won't do it. So if you're going to be storing water in that manner, you can do it with Pepsi bottles or cola bottles, whatever you purchase, and it'll store, but don't store it in milk jugs, because those the plastic plastic will leach into the water, and you're going to have to really filter it then because you don't want to be drinking that plastic. And then the second thing is after about 9 months to a year, they're just going to start to leak. So water is absolutely critical. Big Berkey is my favorite for in-home. We've used one for many years. We're on a well. And even with well water, I still filter it because we have nitrates and all the other chemicals in agricultural, jet fuel exhaust, all that stuff that has come back down to the earth. The water washes it back down into the water table, and then you end up drinking it. So just because you're on a well, don't think the water is safe. You can get these tests, in-home tests that test for nitrates and other things. And you'll see that if you're on a well, that there's a good chance that you have nitrates in your water. And if you have nitrates in your water, you don't know what else you have in your water. So in a crisis situation, my recommendation is to filter any water. Like I said, the Big Berkey does it fine. With a Big Berkey with 4 filters in it, you can get about 20 gallons of water a day. And each filter lasts about 3,000 gallons. So if you have 4 of them in there, that's 12,000 gallons. And you can do the math. Each person, you have 4 people in your family, each person drinking 2 gallons a day, that's 8 gallons into 12,000. That's a couple days so that you can take care of your family. And for the cost of it, which is in the mid-$300 price range, nothing beats that. Now, again, like I said, with water, 1 is none, 2 is 1. You always want to have a set of backup filters. If something does happen, you do not want to have that one method of producing water for your family that's drinkable, potable, and have that somehow something happened to it. Getting 2 Big Berkeys with 2 filters in it. That way you have a second one. You can actually put it in a second location. So that's extremely important. For bug home bags, that Sawyer mini filter, 100,000 gallons. That's more water than you'll drink in a lifetime. Again, you can't let it freeze. It acts like a drinking straw. So you can just go and put it basically into any kind of water except for salt water. And, as you use it like a straw, you'll be pulling out clean, fresh drinking water because, most Americans, if you're having to hike home any distance at all, most Americans aren't used to hiking 10, 15 miles a day. You're going to want to go light. I know my bug home bag is very heavy, but as the situation determines it, I would absolutely just dump a lot of the stuff out of there. If I depending on the distance I am from home, do I have to go through a city and other things like that, I would just dump most of it there and just go as light as I can home. And so that the Sawyer mini filter, I can put it actually in my pocket. It's very light, so that's good. And like I said, lasts 100,000 gallons. So I'm not going to use that up. Now, it wouldn't be good to use it for a large family because it's meant for individual use. If you have, like I said, a community, the Trekker, for the home, the Big Berkey, and for bug home type of thing, I would maybe look at the Sawyer mini filter.
The only alternative for when the internet goes down or you're not allowed to or you're running for your life, how do people keep in contact with the world so they know what's going on, what's safe, where's safe, maybe not where's safe? What do you recommend?
Well, what I recommend right now is something, and it's a pretty elaborate plan. I would go out tomorrow and go to the USGC, United States Geological Survey, and order 7.5-minute maps for my area. They're very, very detailed maps. Topography, everything is on those maps. And you're going to be ground zero. You're going to be the center one. There's going to be 8 that surround you. I would get those out and put them down, and I would start gathering intelligence from my area. This is what keeps people alive. Intelligence gathering is so important. It's peeling an onion. That's what they call it, peeling the onion. You might not think this little piece of intelligence is important, but if you start cataloging it down, you're going to find out that it all works and makes a plan. So what I would do is I would know where every military base is at. I would know where any armory is at. I would know where the power stations are at. I would know where the pharmaceuticals are at. I would know all that type of any ham radio clubs, where the radio towers are at, all of it. Because all those things for normal people, and let's just say you're in a community where you're trying to maintain normalcy and you have people working together with you, there are going to be a lot of people seeking to take those out. And you're going to want to know where they're at. You're going to want to be able to get to those locations and not, was there a drugstore down in that corner or over this corner or where is the police station at? What frequencies do they broadcast on? What is NOAA, National Oceanic Administration, what frequencies do they broadcast on? You're not going to want to figure that out under duress. You're going to want to gain that intelligence now. And so I tell this to people all the time. If you have a group of people, make one of them a dedicated intelligence guy. He gathers the information. Do you have radical groups in your area? I mean, do you have a radical, mosque in your area? Do you have radical groups? Do you have Antifa? You want to catalog all that. 80% of gathered intelligence the government gets on you is some open source. It's
Bob,
just there.
Bob, please tell me again. Would you say 7.5-minute maps? Is that what you said?
Yeah, 7.5-minute maps. That's the measurement of how wide the map is and the detail of it. You get 7.5-minute, 15-minute maps. So if you go to USGC and type in 7.5-minute maps on a compass, minutes, seconds, all that, right. You're going to get that. I think it's 7,500 yards or meters, one of them. But and so it's going to be extremely detailed, and they're going to have alignment pins on them, so you can actually put them all together, make a nice big map if you get all 9 in your area. That's called your area of operation. And going into things like communication, I know people buy this all the time, and this will drive me nuts. Steve, you're talking about what drives you nuts. This drives me nuts. I hear people go, well, I'm going to buy radios, but I'm just going to stick them in a box because when the crap hits the fan, the FCC won't care. Yes. Okay? And I'm going to get somebody who's never shot an AR-15 before, give him a magazine, put it in the box, put the bullets on the side of the bed, and at 2 o'clock in the morning when the guy's kicking your glass door in, I want you to load that magazine, put it in the weapon, charge the weapon, point it, and fire effectively. Ain't going to happen.
Yeah, that isn't going to happen.
No, it's not. And that's the same thing of people saying, I'm just going to buy something and stick it in a corner. Don't buy it. Don't call me up and don't buy it if you're not going to learn how to use it. I train with my AR-15 at least 2 or 3 times a month, weekly. Try to do it weekly. And it's amazing how fast you lose those shooting skills if you're not putting them into practice. It's a muscle memory that you remember. I have an ACOG. ACOG sits 2 inches above the barrel. If I've sighted in at 50 yards, that means at 50 yards, that 2 inches they hit 0. If I'm at 10 yards and I shoot, the gun's not going to be accurate. So I need to know how to do that holdover. All those things that come into play when I'm learning how to shoot and fire effectively. Because again, in a crisis situation, ammunition would be a premium. I mean, it's just that if you can buy all the food and water you want, and if you can't defend it, you're not keeping it. I promise you, somebody's going to find you. I don't care if you live in the middle of anywhere. Somebody is going to find you. There are people that are reconning and find it. There's too much information out there of every house in this country. So unless you're living in the middle of the national forest, starving to death and dying there, somebody's going to eventually find you.
Yeah. And by the way, people have tried that, and even they find them there.
Go to a Green Beret. Go to a Navy SEAL. Go to a Vietnam veteran and say, did you go on a 2-week long-range patrol? Yes. What was it like? Brutal. These are guys that are in the prime of their life that have been trained for this. And they go on a 2-week long-range patrol eating MREs, and they come back beat up. It isn't going to happen. You're going to go in the woods and die. I mean, that's what's going to happen. And there's going to be people in the woods that are going to victimize you. I mean, you just cannot imagine the depravity of what is going to happen. That statement from a guy who was fairly well plugged in, pretty good desk, pretty big-sized desk, and posed that question to me. We have a pornography, violence-saturated society. What are people going to do when the rule of law breaks down? And that's what he said. They can take up knitting? No. If you go out in the woods, you're going to meet some people that are really probably brutal out there, that are desperate, and anything you have, they'll take. And it's the rule.
Your liver.
Yeah. Well, yes. It goes back to the book Liver Eating Johnson. That was the book that Jeremiah Johnson was based on. And that's what he did. He would eat the Indian livers. I mean, brutal. I mean, that was, no rule of law in the 1820s, 1830s out west. And it just, people did what they wanted to do, and it was, you read the stories. That's the name of the book, Liver Eating Johnson. Go online and order it, read it. It's a brutal time. And so, you're going to be found, and you're going to have to defend yourself. So be prepared for that. It is a godly thing. I draw so much encouragement from the fact that the King of Peace, the King of Righteousness, Melchizedek, met Abraham as he returned from the slaughter of the kings. Abraham had just come and just waylaid hundreds of people and killed them, slaughtered them is the word the King James uses, and I love that word. He slaughtered them. And, you know, when he was coming back, why did Melchizedek wait till then to come and honor Abraham? Maybe it was because he put all on the line to defend his family. You know, God gives us our families are the most important things we have on this earth. And so Abraham had he had gone for his brother's, child and just put all in line to protect that life. And the King of Peace, King of Righteousness, came and honored him. So for those who think it's not a good thing to do that, I just say go back to my father Abraham and say he did it, you know. David did it.